Hello everyone, this is Tom Fox, and welcome to episode 67 of the FCPA Compliance and Ethics Report. In this episode, Mike Brown and I continue our World Cup report. This is part 2, and we discuss the award of the World Cup to Qatar and the first week's action.
Hello everyone,
I hope you enjoy it.
Fox,
Thank you.
And I'd like to welcome you to this episode of the FCPA Compliance and Ethics Report. This is our World Cup report, part 2, with Mike Brown from Infratel. And hello, Mike. Welcome back.
Thank you very much. How are you doing, Tom?
Good. We continue our 4-part, at least, episode of some compliance and ethics in World Cup over the next month. We are now nearing our end of our first week of the World Cup, so lots to talk about there. But Mike, I thought maybe for the compliance and ethics portion of today's podcast, we could talk a little bit about the World Cup selection process and focus on a little bit on Russia for 2018, but a little bit more on Qatar, which was awarded the 2022 World Cup. And I should probably give a spoiler alert to anyone listening to this. We are going to, by the end of this podcast, you will know that it gets hot in the country of Qatar in the summer. Upwards of 45 or 50 degrees Celsius, which can be 120 degrees. Apparently, this was not known to FIFA when they made their World Cup selection. It has become known to them since that time. I'm not sure we can attribute that to global warming, but I do want to alert our listeners that for that spoiler alert. So if you didn't want to hear that, too bad. So with that, we've had some really interesting revelations about the award to Qatar. I think, certainly from my perspective, it was a surprise for a country of so few people with so little a history of world-class soccer or football to be awarded a World Cup. Although Sepp Blatter made it clear that in 2010, when the award was made for South Africa, he wanted to hold a championship in Africa, which I thought for reasons which were good to help promote the growth of soccer in that country. But a few weeks ago, the Sunday London Times broke a very large story which had been circulating actually since the time of the selection about bribes and corruption paid by Qatar for to receive the winning bid or receive the award. And some of the things that the Times talked about and had been talked about in the Wall Street Journal and the New York Times were the Qatar government making charitable donations in the form of to various soccer federations across the globe to win their votes. But perhaps more brazenly or more significantly was the payment of money to heads of regional soccer federations. Very disturbing there. But sort of any thoughts from either your professional perspective at Infratel or as a fan or former soccer player?
Yeah, the thoughts are as we started looking at this whole World Cup event, it really became evident that that you needed to look at the ruling body, if you will, of FIFA, who fundamentally controls the aspects of what actually happens. I think you actually have to look at the sort of the selection process, maybe the run-up or the qualification process, and then fundamentally the event. And when you do some of the analysis of where the money is in this opportunity, there's a huge pool of money, and people argue that you can have anywhere from $40 to $60 billion are online, right, for every selection every 4 years. Even today in Brazil, the Brazil organization has indicated that they think there might be $27.9 billion that are going to come from the hosting aspect of the World Cup. In the sort of intelligence, business risk side of it, due diligence side of it, you just have to really look at what is FIFA doing to basically make themselves, they're a non-profit, non-commercial entity, is what they say. They have 6, big regional conferences. They come together. From this current World Cup in Brazil, they stand to earn about $4 billion of operating profit. They think they're going to spend $2 billion to help run it. But the point that I'm trying to make is that the selection process alone should have been extremely transparent, and I don't think it is. I think the due diligence aspect of what you're trying to do should be clearly communicated. There's 24 selection people associated with the process. 209 countries. So there's a lot of detail associated with how they go about doing it. Now, the other articles that have been written concerning the selection process is that there's a sort of if you vote for me, I'll vote for you process going on. And so Russia is being talked about as being one of the influence peddlers that actually peddles that if you actually vote for me in 2018, I'll put together an organization that'll help vote for you in 2022. So just the process alone, people need to recognize that there's billions and billions of dollars on the line, that this is not a small, innocent, naive like approach. And so the selection process itself should be really a much, much more clearly communicated opportunity from a selection process. So, from a process. So anyway, that's some of my thoughts.
Mike, one of the things that comes up in the FCPA compliance context on a regular basis is the issue of charitable donations. And in some countries, it's really more compelled giving. You have to rebate a portion of your profits back for charitable social responsibility component. In other areas, it is something the government suggests strongly. But nevertheless, many U.S. companies, and for their own philanthropic reasons, may want to engage either in charitable donations or to help bring up a local third world country, their population, to a sophistication and technical level so that they can actually do work with them and work on a worldwide basis. So this is something that comes up in the FCPA context, and I think does cause a fair amount of hand-wringing. From your perspective on the business intelligence, are there really any key questions, or are they really highlighted by FIFA where it's process and transparency and those sorts of questions? And really what I hear you talk about the most is you've got to know who you're doing business with.
Well, we always start with that perspective. And the problem is when you want to really know who you're dealing with, you have to deal with the current conditions. And an example that Candace talks about all the time is in Latin America, for example, there really are no credit reports. Okay, so there is no unifying technology location that allows you to kind of easily go find the information. So what you actually have to do is you have to actually do like deep media research where you're actually looking at the media, looking at the print media, the communication media, the magazine media that publishes information, and you find information out specifically in country, and specifically, if you need, you also have to be able to walk that fine line of legal laws of what are you allowed to look for, what can you look for, right? But we really do believe that one, transparency is critical. Tell me what you're doing, show me what you're doing, make sure it's audible, that kind of stuff, right? Very high level. But in reality, I think when we talk about due diligence, it's let's go deep, let's go as complex and as complete as we can. We would basically say that every 24 of the people who are making the selection process, there needs to be deep due diligence going on, and it needs to happen, for example, every year, because the selection process is an ongoing aspect. Things change in people's lives. You run into risks of being influenceable. You want to know who they work for, where they work for, what kind of relationships they have, and that's what we mean by going deep and getting that basic due diligence information. So, it's a hard thing. Charitable donate. I mean, here's the other part of on the other side of charitable donation is FIFA and countries. They fly these individuals in and they wine and dine them, in a way that would be frowned exceedingly poorly from an FCPA perspective when it comes to basic gifts. I mean we're talking about hundreds and thousands of dollars of dinners and trips and travel and enjoying things in countries. So it gets frustrating, by the way. So one of the things that FIFA has done is they've established 25 points of improvements for themselves, and they've implemented 22 of them. They have an early watch warning system when it comes to betting. They have a books and auditing process that they're doing that allows them to help figure out where some of the cash is flowing towards. But in reality, they've done nothing in the selection process. They've done nothing for the qualification process, and they've done very little, to me, in the run the event, if you will, during the 6-ish weeks of the World Cup time. So a lot of improvements could be made.
Yes. Okay, well, we're about at our halfway point, Mike, so perhaps we can turn now to the fun part of our podcast, which
Soccer.
is a review of the first week. Once again, I'm going to talk about it from the fan perspective, and we're going to turn to you for a little in-depth analysis of the U.S. Victory over Ghana. Great win by the U.S. So what were your thoughts?
So just so you know, I was so excited. My hands were shaking. I had so much adrenaline going before the game. And if there was anyone near my house within the first 30 seconds, they would have heard me yelling and screaming. So that was as exciting of a opening situation that I've seen in a long time.
Why don't you explain what led to your, my, and everyone else's who was watching excitement?
Well, in this case, we had one of the key scorers, Clint Dempsey, one of the key players. He took basically, it started from a throw-in pass within the first 20 seconds, made a quick turn, a quick fake, and got into the box and kicked a left-footed shot past the keeper for a score in arguably 29 to 32 seconds or something along that period of time. And
right.
So they were up 1-0 for a long period of time. So,
and then what were your thoughts on how I guess we had a couple of significant events. Right. First of all, Josie Altidore went out with what I thought was a pretty serious hamstring injury, and then Clint Dempsey took an inadvertent foot to the nose. Right. Which broke his nose, and he played at least 3/4 of the game with a broken nose. And I don't know if anyone out there has ever had a broken nose, but it significantly affects your breathing. Yeah. And if you're not shot up with any painkillers, with a pain level, so his effectiveness really seemed to taper off. But what were your thoughts on those events, and then kind of the how the U.S. reacted to those? How did the team come together, if at all?
Yeah, the Josie's injury was the classic hamstring issue where you're running and you're going for almost like a breakaway and one-on-one time. In this case, strikers live and breathe for those opportunities because one quick move and you're past him and you're scoring, and he went down, and so. if it's a hamstring injury, they're hard to fix fast. So he may be back in a week or two. Who knows? I was really happy to see that he selected Aaron as the replacement person. He's called the Iceman in his league. He's fast. He's young. He's very clever. Unfortunately, I think he was out of sync with what was going on. And then the biggest problem is that you now have Clint, who got injured. He was having a hard time just breathing and playing. I don't know if you saw the action, but you could see the nose was broken immediately when he was on the ground. It was off to the side, and they were moving it into place. That was I've had to deal with that in the past. But and then you had Michael Bradley, who I basically was waxing, so strongly about in the last conversation. Arguably had one of his worst outings in a way. But I don't know if he had a bad outing or just he had really very little outlet to deal with issues. But I thought the defense was stellar. They bent, they didn't break. The pass was a clever pass that they scored upon. He actually kicked it on with his outside of his foot crossing. So it was, both a clever pass and a clever shot. So well scored. And then we had one of the replacements, one of the guys of Jurgen's guys come in as defense and headed it down and scored it. And so, and by the way, Zuzi was a selection process that might have replaced one of the guys that people have been yelling about. So, he did a hell of a job on the pass. And then again, I thought the team, the pitch, if you look at the soccer pitch, the pitch was really fast and really hard. And so anytime the ball got up in the air, it started bouncing a lot. You could see that they're really working hard to keep it on the ground. And it's really a shock to the system to see. I'm almost envisioning that the U.S. team is thinking that they were going to get scored upon first, and then they would have to come back. But in this case, they had a very fast score, and then they had to hold on for a long period of time. And by the way, they scored 4 minutes after they got scored upon. So I think they were mentally prepared to handle. They had planned for potentially being either down or being tied, and needed to do something to score. So it's a crazy game, but it's fun to watch.
I had some real questions about conditioning because I saw more than one player out there rubbing his hamstring.
Right.
And from living in Texas all my life, playing sports in Houston, when I hear a temperature of 77 degrees and humidity of 70%, I start to say, where do I go to get in nicer conditions?
Right.
When you have hamstring pulls, that tends to tell me that that's really either a lack of conditioning or an over-conditioning. The guys have just worked so hard, they haven't had chance to really let their bodies come back down a little bit. Any thoughts on conditioning or any of those things you might have seen?
I think our team is probably the best conditioned team out there in the World Cup. Look, if you're in Houston, 77 is actually pretty nice.
It's
to
real
be honest.
nice.
It's really nice. And so, I coached soccer in Houston when it was 95 and 95, and that's a brutal condition. As far as being over conditioned and under conditioned, I don't think they ever have a mistake of being under conditioned at this point in time. They're super well conditioned. It may be that I don't understand why you actually have these hamstring things that occur, but it wasn't just the U.S. It was many other teams that were having the exact same issues. So I honestly don't know. What did you think about the reaction and the sort of the bend not break sort of approach to soccer?
Well, I was really more irritated with the conditioning. I thought I didn't think they were conditioned well enough. I thought I saw way too much huffing and puffing for what I think are pretty good conditions to play in. 60% humidity is laughable from where I live. So, but Klinsmann, he seems to be a pretty stern taskmaster. And one thing I would say, the Germans are generally pretty well conditioned, and I would say he was always well conditioned. So that would seem to be something that he is a trademark with.
Yeah, one of the things that I heard people when I was watching the game that got wrong, was the U.S. team wasn't passing correctly, wasn't passing well, and they were making all kinds of mistakes this way. When you're up 1-0, and your goal is to win or tie, taking a risk and running out of a risk can be a huge mistake. I don't know if you saw that in a couple of the other games where you had a team in the last basically minute stretch out, take a huge risk, got their players out. The tackle was in the box. The ball came quickly back, and they scored within 30 seconds at the end of the game for a 2-1 win. And so that's just understanding soccer in a sense that if you take a risk to score, you many times going to get scored upon if you don't do your job. So I think about 85 minutes of that 90, well, probably 100 minutes of playing time, 85 minutes of that was back, don't take a risk. If you miss a pass, fine, let it go. Just make sure you don't get out of position. So
good insights.
It's sometimes not very pretty to watch, but I kind of enjoyed it, to be honest with you.
Well, let me talk about some of the things that I enjoyed really from the first week. Obviously, Robbie Van Persie's Dolphin header was spectacular.
Agreed.
And I would have said that was the top goal of the tournament so far until I saw Tim Cahill today. And if you did see it, Tim Cahill took about a 30-meter pass directly in the air, off his left foot, off the crossbar, inches over the goalie's hand. It was just spectacular. He's been a great, great player for many years, and I'm really glad to see near probably the twilight of his career just excel this well on the international stage. He's a striker for Australia. It was just spectacular.
And just show how well MLS is doing as a conference out there, because that's where he's been playing for the last 3 or 4 years now.
Right.
Yeah.
And then for those who may not have heard, we're recording this on Wednesday. Spain, last tournament's champion, was eliminated today. Chile beat them 2-0. I'm not sure it would be called a huge upset, but probably some upset. It was interesting, the commentary after the game. They said it was not the Spanish system that lost, but it was players who were at the end of really a generation of players who had been on one of the greatest runs ever through 2 European Cups and a World Cup championship, just spectacular run. But that ended today for Spain. So we've seen some great goals. We saw some great games. I think Mexico, Brazil, El Tri, you got to love them. Whether they come up here and beat us occasionally or perhaps too often, they're still our neighbors, and I still pull for them. A lot of those guys have and do play in the MLS, and they come to Houston a fair amount to play friendly, so we see them in Houston.
And that keeper was outstanding. Yes. He was incredible.
Yes.
It was incredible.
So tomorrow we have England playing Uruguay. England took one on the chin in their opening match, but hopefully they can come back. And we're probably moving towards the end of our time. So do you have a little preview of U.S. and Portugal?
Well, I do. And I have to my second team was Netherlands, and a little shout out to them actually beating Australia and getting through. But, Portugal Sunday, they actually have two main players that are going to be missing. Pepe, who got a red card, he won't be able to play, and they have another defender that is injured also, who will not be able to play. So I think the U.S. has a really good opportunity, good chance of actually beating Portugal straight up, 3-1 kind of score application, because Ronaldo hasn't been playing well, has been injured, is saying 100%, but clearly doesn't look like he's 100%. And with the ousting of Spain, and I have to say that I have to agree with Jurgen in this case, is that you can't take a team from past experience and think they're going to win straight up. And so they may have extended their players a little too long. But Portugal, U.S., I'm excited about it. I think we actually have a really good chance of winning. The question will be who's going to start in place of Jose. What do you think? You think it's going to be Aaron, or do you think it's going to be Wondolowski?
No, I think it's going to be Aaron.
Okay.
I agree. The one negative critique I had on the U.S. wins it was pretty clear to me they needed Brad Davis for those corners. I didn't think the corners were delivered, with the exception of the final one, delivered on target too well.
Well, he may play because he's on the other side. So whether he's going to play, I mean, the argument is Zuzi, is going to be Bedoya, is going to be Brad.
Right.
So you never know. I mean, he hasn't been afraid to move peak players in and out, and I was shocked that Brooks was in there. To be honest with you, I was like, he's a serviceman. I love the fact that his dad was a serviceman, and he came in and he's a U.S. citizen, and he's a big, tall, 6'4" guy that plays. And so I was really happy to see him win. He was stunned. He couldn't talk at all, which is fun. But it's good. I'm excited for it. It's crazy time of year right now. So.
Well, it's like he said. He's sitting at home, and his mom says, "Oh, Jurgen Klinsmann on the line to talk to you." And he's like, "Yeah, right, Mom. What do you do when you're 18?" And yeah, Jurgen's just called to chat.
Yeah, you just want to say hello. Yeah, how you doing, buddy?
Yeah, come on down. We got a little training camp going on.
That's right. I'm excited. I think we have a good chance. I would have never guessed Spain was going to be gone so fast.
Right.
If Portugal loses to us, they're going to be gone.
Yep.
Just new world out there.
The stars might be lining up.
There you go. That's a great ending.
Well, Mike, I really appreciate you taking the time to visit with me. I hope everyone has enjoyed part 2 of our World Cup series. And once again, if anyone wanted to get in touch with you, could you give them a way to do so?
Absolutely. Please contact me at dmbrown@infortal.com. It's infortal.com. Look forward to seeing any responses or any questions.
All right. Well, thanks a lot, and we look forward to visiting with you our next episode.
Thank you.